Hi, my name is Richard Landers. I am an associate professor of industrial organizational psychology at the University of Minnesota, and I am the instructor for Karma's course on web scraping. To give you a little background as to why you might want to take a course on web scraping, I'll tell you a little bit about why I am so passionate about this area, and that is that I view web scraping as one of a variety of data science tools that really democratizes the ability to collect data. Whereas for many research questions and for many kinds of studies that you might want to do, there's a very expensive process to acquire data. It is by nature a little exclusionary in terms of who has funds and resources in order to collect data. And I view web scraping as one of a variety of techniques that can be used to enable the collection of useful, valuable research data at very little cost, other than the time and effort of the researcher. It is really both a theoretical and a practical sort of problem, and we cover both in the course. On the theory side, a lot of what we talk about is based on an article that I and some colleagues published in Psychological Methods on theory, what we call theory-driven web scraping. The idea being that you need to build a rational case for why the collection of data from places like Twitter or Facebook or any random website you might come across are really how you can use what you need to consider in order to understand if that kind of data source is appropriate for the research question that you're trying to answer, as well as what you can do to make it better suited. So it's a question in a way of generalizability of populations and samples, and of really understanding the technological landscape out there that dictates the kind of people that use these websites and the kind of information that they share. So that's the theory side. We talk about that quite a bit. Also the data side and the practical side. How do we actually do it? The course is predominantly in R, coming in with at least a little bit of introductory. If you can get in and you can copy paste some commands into R, you're in a perfectly fine place to start this course. We use R principally to collect data in two different ways. One is in what I would call traditional web scraping, where we actually find sort of arbitrary web pages on the internet and we pull data systematically down with 100% reliability. That's really one of the major purposes of web scraping, is that one doesn't have to worry about copy pasting and going systematically by thousands of web pages one by one and trying to get data down, something that we used to have small armies of undergraduate research assistants do in the organizational sciences and elsewhere. Then we have the problem of getting data from places that have data stores and data warehouses. So things like Twitter or Facebook, the problem is a little bit different, because instead of scraping the data directly down, we actually query these applications that they've made available, still using code, but we query these applications and pull data down systematically on the basis of the code they provided, using something called an application programming interface, or an API. So in this course, on the practical side, we do both. We do web scraping and we also do API access. We conclude the course then with a walkthrough of specific sort of practical projects. Or actually, we go through the whole course that way. There are individual projects nestled throughout the lecture material, so we kind of go back and forth. There's a big focus on practical hands-on experience, but also in having conversations and discussing when is it reasonable to use this kind of data source and when isn't it, which is a very important piece, of course, of trying to later convince reviewers, for example, and perhaps more technically, to make sure you do, in fact, have a good, reasonable case to do web scraping in the first place. So we've really approached it from both of those angles, kind of theory and data, practical, and then we approach practical from both the scraping and the API sense, and we conclude the whole course with an exploration of legal kind of concerns and practical concerns in different localities, as this is a really complex kind of area for the average social scientist to get into, and might not appreciate the privacy and legal issues surrounding privacy associated with it. It's a really fascinating, fun area, I hope I'll give you some tools to actually get some really interesting data collection done on your own, and that you'll walk away from the course being able to do quite a bit more than you could walking in. Please join me.